Hey guys, what's up? So, what are some of the greatest video games in the fantasy genre ever made that are really, really good? And not just like the ones that everyone's heard of, just some of the ones that a lot of people have not heard of, some of the ones that are not too under the radar because when something's good, it's got a good following, but they're not the most popular games of all time. And I really do think that there's a lot of great games out there that a lot of people have not heard of. So, here's just a few of what I think the best fantasy video games are of all time. I'm just going to talk about a few of them, and some of these games are available on different systems and stuff, and they might have had remakes over the years and whatever. So let me show you some of the ones that I think are really, really like worth talking about, and what I liked and what I didn't like about them. It's not just going to be the best ones. It's going to be like, well, I like this about it, but I didn't like this about it either. So let me just show you some of the ones I want to talk about. The first one I want to talk about is Dragon's Dogma. This has been getting a lot of hype lately because Dragon's Dogma 2 has come out. So this is for the 360. I do think this is a 360 only title. I'm not sure if it comes on other systems. It might, But there's another one that just came out, which is Dragon's Dogma 2. And a lot of people told me, play Dragon's Dogma. And I have it on my shelf. So I was like, okay, it's cool. It's a fantasy video game. It's a medieval fantasy video game. So it's not like urban fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that. It's medieval fantasy. It's got the word dragon in it, which anything with the word dragon in it, dragon, Dragon Age, anything like that has Dragon Quest, right? It's basically a fantasy game with dragons. Any dragon's fantasy. So what's interesting about this one is I could not get into it. And I did hear this from other people also. They were like, well, I can't really get into this too much. But they played it and they kept playing it and playing it. And what they said about this game is that it doesn't hold your hand. And that's why it's so hard to get to understand this game. It's fun and cool, but I find that I went a few levels in, it's very, very hard to understand how to play this game. You have to figure out how to pick different companions called pawns. You have to figure out how to go around the map because it's an open world and it doesn't tell you which way to go next. It's just like, okay, go this way. Now, some levels are fun with lots of monsters and lots of battles, and that's what I like about games. I like the action games. I like something where I'm fighting and shooting and using swords and jumping around, and there's lots of cool graphics and cool special effects and it's over the top. It's got that sometimes. I thought the battle mechanics was kind of weird. You have to fight with your companions. Your companions always die. You have to revive them. It's hard to figure out how to add life points to your character and stuff like that. And it just seems like even on an easy level, it's really hard not to get killed by the bandits. It's just there's just tons of bandits. Either the enemies are too easy to fight, like the wolves, they're too easy to beat. You just shoot them a few times and that's it, right? Or there's bandits, which you can spend hours and hours trying to beat the same faction of bandits and not do it. So I can't figure it out. But what they did say, if you are interested in something like Dragon's Dogma, is that you really do have to figure it out. A lot of times you might even have to go online. It comes with a booklet, I believe. It does come with a booklet, so you can kind of read that a little bit. Very complicated game to play. In my opinion, not the best game of all time. But it is a Dragon's Dogma game, so it's very, very fantasy, and so it's worth talking about. Dragon's Dogma 2, however, came out, and that one I haven't played it, right? But I heard it was actually better than this one. A lot of people have been getting into Dragon's Dogma 2, which is interesting because no one talked about Dragon's Dogma 1 before Dragon's Dogma 2 came out, and now they're talking about both of them. So I'm going to say not recommend because it's hard to figure it out. But I'm also going to say some people have played it, figured it out, and really enjoy it. So it's kind of a little bit on both sides of the spectrum of whether this is a good game or not. I really think it's up to opinion. I think I think it's worth giving it a go just to see if you're the kind of person that likes it or you're not the kind of person that likes it. So it's actually not bad to give it a go. It's not bad to give it a try. But I also can't recommend that anyone's going to really like it or not like it. You might like it, right? This one, however, is an excellent, fun action fantasy video game. The reason that I'm going to talk about this being fantasy is because even though you have guns and you're in a modern world, it's also you're not in a totally modern world. And then a lot of the use swords and you fight monsters, and there's a lot of weird ones there. So, and so, and so like, so you use swords, you use magic, a lot of the time, and so yeah. So I'm gonna say this is a great game. Now it's only got a bunch of levels. It's not open world. It's like one level at a time. So it's actually pretty cool. It did get interesting little bit of a thing here. It got best action game of E3 by 1UP. So it's a best of E3 winner. A lot of people have heard of this game, however, but I don't think everyone's heard of Bayonetta, and I don't think everyone's played it. I remember when Bayonetta came out, and I remember like they were reviewing it on on some of the shows, right? And they were like, oh no, it's campy, it's over the top, and some people actually didn't like Bayonetta. I'm gonna say this is a great game, and I think most people did like it. It's fun. I like the female hero in this one. It's really, really cool when you have like a female hero who's badass, and she's got like, but I mean, it's fantasy. It's like she's got 2 different guns and whatever. She's got guns on her boots and stuff like that. You go into like hell, and there's heaven and hell, and basically you fight angels, and the angels are the ones that are trying to kill you, right? And hell is just trying to help you, giving you weapons and things like that. So a lot of fun. Bayonetta is really, really cool. I would highly recommend this. I'm going to even go to say that this is a must play, must play, especially if you like fantasy. If you like fantasy and you like Heavy Metal the movie, she's very, very much a Tarna-like character, except that she has guns. The thing is, you don't use guns that much in this game. You mainly use like swords, scythes. I think there's a scythe. There's some kind of like weird melee weapons. You use a whip. You use a bunch of like crazy. I think you use claws. You use a bunch of really, really cool melee weapons, and it's really, really over the top action. I was it ended really, really quickly. And I would recommend playing it on normal unless you're really good at games, because playing it on hard is really hard. You can get into a few levels and then it's just really, really hard to get past any level. So play it on normal. It's got a nice difficulty. I also would recommend not using the power-ups, because the power-ups, while like if you don't use the power-ups and you don't use all of the extra things they give you to power up and restore your character and stuff like that in mid-battles, sometimes you might want to do that just to get to the next level. But I recommend not doing that, because you will basically beat the level anyway without doing it. It also has something very, very interesting in this game. It's got a weird game mechanic in this, where when you play a certain level over and over again too many times, it makes the level easier for you automatically. It doesn't say, do you want an easier difficulty, which some games do. Like, it beats you a few times, like Devil May Cry does that, another really cool fantasy video game. But Devil May Cry, this is a lot like Devil May Cry, but way fucking better. So anyway, like, it basically, like, automatically lowers the difficulty and then gives you less points. So if it's too hard to beat the level, if you do it too many times, you actually get less points from beating that level eventually. You get more points from beating the level quickly. So basically you get more points. Like, the less you get hit, the more points you get. The more damage you do, the faster you beat the level, the more points you get. So it's not just like passing the level, it's how well you pass that level. Like, for example, if you pass that level without taking any damage, you get like a platinum trophy or something like that. So great game, not to miss this game at all. I want to talk about this one here, which is Fable. This is Fable 3, which is my favorite one out of all of the Fables. And honestly, I played Fable 2 and 3. I think I played Fable 1 a little bit on the Xbox original. Now, honestly, like, this is what I think about Fable. It's not a bad game. It's just kind of silly, and like there's certain things that you can do in here which are like kind of useless. And there's certain like levels and quests that you have to go through, which I don't find that fun. I don't like it when you have to go all over the place trying to find what you're supposed to be doing. And this has it a little bit. Also, it gets you to do things that you don't want to do in order to get to the next level. It doesn't ask you, hey, do you want to do this? It's like, no, you have to do this. And it's not a pleasant thing to do. Like, you have to, on one level, you have to make a choice between, I don't think it was Fable, I remember it was Fable 2 or 3. They're both like very, very similar. You have to make a choice of, do you want to kill your friend or kill a whole, do you want your friend killed or a whole population of people? It's like one or the other. Either you save a whole village of people and your friend dies, or you save your friend and a whole village of people dies. And you have to do one or the other. And no matter which one you choose, it's always the wrong one, because like if you save your friend, the village dies. And you've killed the whole village. If you save the village, your friend dies. So it's things like that that I didn't like about the game. But what I didn't like the most about this game is you cannot lose in Fable 2 and 3. Now, some people don't care about that. I care about that. A game where you can't lose is a game that's not a game. It's more of a walkthrough adventure, video book, right? Yes, you do fight enemies and you do get killed, but the thing is you don't actually lose anything by getting killed. You lose experience points, and really experience points in this game don't do anything for you. You will still level up to new weapons, more money, higher levels. Anyway, you'll just do it a little bit slower, but it doesn't really make a difference in the game. So it doesn't make a difference in the game whether you live or die. You can die 10 times and then beat the level. You can die 100 times and beat the level. It doesn't really matter because you don't really get, you don't really lose any part of the game when you die. It's not like, you die, so you have to, you go back to the initial checkpoint and then start the level over. No, you just continue the level where you are. You lose some experience points, and then you just keep going. So it's really impossible to lose at Fable 3. This is another one that a lot of people liked, but I'm going to tell you what I honestly think about this. This is Dragon Age Origins. Now, there are other Dragon Age games. I haven't played them, but as the name Dragon suggests, yes, it's another medieval fantasy. It's basically based on Dungeons and Dragons. This is what I thought about this game. It does have real-time combat. I do not like turn-based combat. I find it boring, and I just don't like games that have that, just because I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy clicking, okay, I attack, and then It's fun when you're playing tabletop, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons where you roll dice, but the dice is more of a random thing, and even though you have turn-based combat, it's not all about the combat. It's all about the fantasy, interacting with your friends on a fantasy adventure with Dungeons and Dragons. But with video games, I find it's all combat. I find it's all the action of the game, which some people don't care about. But what I thought about this kind of combat was that sometimes it was too hard and sometimes it was too easy. And it was also kind of a little bit turn-based, where you have to kind of click at what kind of attack you want to do and whatever it is. It does come with the manuals that explains a little bit. Also a little bit hard to play. But the number one thing that I thought about this was, even though I liked the graphics and the story was okay, I find that some of the levels, some of the enemies are too hard to beat. And as you just play it over and over again, you just can't beat them. They're just way more powerful than you are. And I guess the whole point of that is you have to leave the enemies and then power up a little bit, become a little bit stronger, and then come back to those enemies and then fight with them. But even more than that, which I can deal with enemies that are hard to kill, but even more than that in this one, I also find it occasionally you will get lost and you have to go through backwards and forwards and this way and that way to figure out which way you're going. And it's very hard to know which way to go, what's the next level, what do I do next? And you end up going places where you're not ready to go yet, or you can't find your way to the next level and you keep going back to levels that you've already fought at. So you kind of get lost in here for a really long time, and for a while you're just not doing anything but trying to find your way around. And on top of that, I find that the story in this was not that interesting. It really didn't hook me. I really didn't care about the story too much. I really didn't care what happened next. And when you interact with the characters in this one, I find that it gives you options of, do you say this? Do you say that? Do you want to say this? Do you want to say that? And a lot of things, they'll give you 3 or 4 options of things to say. And a lot of the times they're kind of silly or they're not really things you actually want to say, but they're things that you can only pick 4 whatever, different 3 or 4 different options of what you're going to say. And you've got to pick one of those. And a lot of times it's none of these is what you really want to say. So, the whole RPG aspect in that respect isn't that great. That's just my opinion of Dragon Age. I haven't played the other ones. I will try the other ones because I think it's a good idea of a game. And I thought I had some fun with it, but definitely not anything that you can't find your way around. You can't beat the enemies. It's really hard to continue playing it. So this one here I want to talk about, which is like The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings. This is pretty cool. And now this does come with a slipcover, and it comes with like an extra booklet too, which is interesting. And this is like a quest handbook and stuff. This is a really good game. I didn't like this at first because I didn't like the battle mechanics, but the story is fantastic. The character is really cool. I did hear Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt was better than this one. This is the enhanced edition, whatever it is. I love this so much. I played it twice, and then like after you're done playing it, you can still continue playing it. There's these like little fights you can get into and start fighting. Basically you're a mercenary. You fight other things. It's hard to figure out sometimes, and some of the levels are way too hard, but they're not unbeatable. They're good hard. They're hard levels to beat, but they're not unbeatable levels. It's not like, this is impossible. No, you get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better until you eventually beat it. Now, the trick is to become powerful enough that when you do fight those bosses, you're able to actually beat them. And that really is, do not engage with an enemy that's too hard to fight unless you're powerful enough to beat him, because then it's just all skill. And it is hard as hell. So you want to get the better swords, the better magic, you want to be leveled up and all that. You also want to go, in order to do that, you want to go on all the side quests. The side quests are important because it levels up your character, and they're also fun to do. The story's fantastic. I love the medieval aspect of it. Yes, some people say The Witcher is a ripoff of Elric from the Michael Moorcock novels, but honestly, whatever, it's a fun game, and this is not like the Elric saga, whatever. This video game is completely like cool and original, and it's nothing like it. Even though the character might be influenced by Elric, this is not anything like an Elric game, which I would love an Elric game, but they don't have any Elric games. So beautiful, beautiful game. Highly recommend, especially if you like medieval fantasy games. This is a fantastic game to play. I would definitely say do not pass this up. Get a chance to play it, play it. This one, however, a lot of people like this one. This is Dark Souls. Very cool. I don't know how good this game is because it's too hard to play. Seriously. If you don't care about a game that's so hard that you can't advance in it like for hours and hours and hours, you're playing the same enemy over and over again for literally hours and hours and hours just to beat that one enemy, just to get to the next one. This is a freaking hard. I don't even know what to say about this game because I haven't played it. I played it for a long time. I just haven't gotten that far into it. I got to like the second level. Like somehow I beat that first boss. Somehow. I don't even know how I did it because I tried it over and over and over again. Then I watched the walkthrough, the walkthrough video in order. That really taught you a little bit, but didn't really teach you that much about it. But it's just really hard. If you like hard games, a lot of people say this is good. I can't even say I want to play this game, but it's too freaking hard for me to get to any level. I'm on the second level where there's like these skeletons, and there's literally two skeletons in front of you, and they're really super hard to beat, but you can beat them. And when you do beat them, you walk a little bit further, and there's more skeletons, and it's just like, why skeletons? They're not the most they're not really a creative enemy to beat. Like, what the hell, skeletons? Why skeletons? They're just, you can make anything. You can design really cool monsters, but skeletons, come on. This one is another one where people loved Diablo 3. And I think Diablo 4 came out at this point. So Diablo 3, what do I say about this? I like this kind of game, but I don't like the 2D aspect of it. I just feel like 2D games, when we were playing arcade games, those were, when 2D games were all we had, they were what we played, right? But now we have 3D games, and that's the only thing about Diablo and the next Diablo that I'm probably not going to get the next Diablo unless it's like super cheap and I'll just get it, is I don't like that it's a 2D game. It is a cool Baldur's Gate kind of, it's definitely D&D. It's definitely like medieval fantasy, and it's really cool. It's real-time combat, which is really cool, but the over-the-top, the swords are cool, the weapons are cool, the story's decent, but the fact that it's 2D, I don't like that part of it, and I really don't play it that much because of that. I may play it for a little bit, but then I don't. And on top of that, also, the enemies are either too easy or too hard sometimes, where like you're just plowing through enemies and enemies and enemies, and you just keep plowing through them. It's just too easy. You're just beating one enemy after the next. Or there's a boss that's really, really hard to beat, and you're just like fighting him and fighting him and fighting him, and you can't beat him, right? And then that's really, really hard to do. So that's the thing I feel about Diablo. This is also a fantasy video game. I'm gonna call it fantasy. It's Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. I'm gonna say it's fantasy because, like, it's, basically it's Aladdin, the Aladdin's lamp kind of fantasy, right? That's the kind of fantasy it is. I mean, he's got a sword, he's got magic. He basically manipulates time itself, which is an interesting battle mechanic in this. It's actually a battle mechanic. Yeah, it's also like a jumping around mechanic. Like if you jump and you fall, you can always like, wind back time and go back on the first ledge and try to jump again, but you need to turn back time in order to beat the enemies. So what happens is in this is the enemies like gang up on you, and at this point, like they'll knock you down and you can't get up, and they'll just like destroy you, right? But the thing is that you can kind of turn back time. So you turn back time, and then you turn back to the point where the enemies haven't surrounded you yet, and you know to avoid that. You know to like jump out of the way and stuff like that. Great battle mechanics. This is a great action game. There's also a lot of jumping around. It's also a really fun platformer. This is seriously, even though it's like PS2, so it's an older game, it's seriously one of the best games ever made. Now, when I first started playing this game, I didn't like it that much. I went through it a little bit. I was like, yeah, the fighting's okay. It's not that great. I didn't like it that much. But lots of people are like, no, this is a great game. It's an Aladdin game. It's one of those old, like Alibaba, old, games from back in the day, from the old mythology, the Greek mythology and stuff like that. So this was such a fun game. There's a lot of great mechanics. It's something where you don't want to miss this. This is the number one game to play. This is Castlevania: Lament of the Innocents. This is on the PS2. I don't know if this is on any other systems, but Castlevania: Lament of the Innocents. Now, the reason I started getting Castlevania games is because I became a big fan of Castlevania Symphony of the Night back in the PS1. Now, when I played the PS1, I had a PS1, I had an N64, but when I played the PS1, I thought the Symphony of the Night was the best game on that system. I played some of the other games on the system, which people recommended, like Metal Gear, but I don't really like stealth games. So what I thought about like Symphony of the Night was it's a great game. Now it's a 2D game, and I don't know if I'm going to like it again. I haven't played it in years, but I thought it was a fantastic game. The graphics were great. The gameplay was great. It was a 2D side-scroller, but a really good one. And besides it being 2D, it was a full-on adventure where you're basically in the house of Dracula and you have to beat the entire, you have to beat the entire freaking mansion, and then you fight Dracula at the end. And so I was already sold on every Castlevania game that came out after that. I gotta say that I haven't really liked the 3D Castlevania games. Back in the N64, I didn't like that one. I didn't hate it. Like, I find that with this one, I could play into it a little bit, and then problems start coming up, which is, it's hard to find your way around. It's hard to find where to go next. And every time you walk through a door, and then you walk back through a door, the enemies respawn. So you can't just walk through a room to get to the next room. Every time you walk into another room, there's enemies, and they respawn. And then they respawn, you have to fight them again. So you can't just like, oh, I went this way, that's the wrong way to go, now I'm just gonna try going this way. No, every room you go into, the enemies respawn, you have to fight them over again, even though you just killed them like a minute ago. Yeah, that's one of them. Basically, what I find with this one, it's hard to know which way to go next. It really is. It's not the fighting, it's not everything else. It's the fact you have to find a key here and go to a door there and then find the power up here and go there first and go there next and then go there next before going to the next level. That's the only thing. It's a bit of a maze game. It's a bit of a have to run all over the place game where the battle mechanics are cool, but the fact that it's hard to find which way to go next is a little bit of putting off. But the graphics are great and the gameplay is pretty cool. The fighting is pretty cool on this one. So this is probably one of the most fantasy, like when people think of fantasy video games, one of the ones that they think of is Baldur's Gate. And this is Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. This is also a 2D bottom to top game, sort of like whatever, Diablo, right? And when I played this is when the PS2 was the latest system, right? When I played this, I thought it was a great game. I really loved this game. Even though it was like 2D, but it's not a side scroll. It's over the top 2D where you look down at the field. It was great. You pick up weapons, you get better swords, you get better armor, you get better shields, and you have magic and stuff like that. There's different enemies and you fight them. There's all kinds of cool stuff in this. This is a great game. This is a great game. If you don't mind the 2D aspect of it, where you're looking at the map from the top, it's like a bird's eye view. This is really good. It's a little bit dated now, but I think back in the day, I thought this was a fantastic game. It's a Dungeons and Dragons game. It even says Forgotten Realms, which is a D&D thing. Baldur's Gate. I don't like the cover too much, but it's not really doing anything with the cover, but it's a great game. It's a very, very Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Now, with Dark Alliance, of course, what came out next was Dark Alliance 2 and Champions of Norath. Same as Dark Alliance. It's the same as Baldur's Gate. Both of these. They're exactly the same game. Different adventure, a little bit. It's like a sequel, basically. And this is a spiritual successor. Or kind of a sequel. I don't know. Which were, in my opinion, not as good as the original. Right? It was the same thing. But for some reason, I didn't really enjoy it as I like Baldur's Gate 1. I thought that was really good. And these, because it wasn't... I thought it was going to be the same thing, but it wasn't. It wasn't as good. The next one I want to talk about is when you're talking about fantasy games, you're talking about Lord of the Rings, right? A lot of people, Lord of the Rings, right? This is Two Towers. This is Return of the King. Think about Lord of the Rings. It's actually fun to play. It's a good game. They're both good games. They're fun to play. They're fantasy. They're Lord of the Rings. You play in that universe. You play as the characters in Lord of the Rings, the wizard, the fighter, the elf, the dwarf, all of these guys. You play as the characters, Aragorn and whatever it is. You play as them, and you play through adventures, and you basically kill monsters from the movies, from the books. What did I like at this one? It's good. I just found, like, at a certain point, the levels become hard to beat. They just become very super difficult. And it's really hard. And when you don't beat the level, and it takes like 10, 15 minutes to try to beat the level, when you don't beat the level, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the level again, and beat the level again, and fight the same monsters again, just to get past the level, and it's impossible because somehow you can't do it. That's the only thing if you like super hard games, and there's no way to lower the difficulty. So if you like super hard games, well, there you go. This one, however, a lot of people have not heard about this one. Fantastic game. This is Draken the Ancient Gates. This is a great game because it really is like you're this girl with a sword. It's a 3D fantasy adventure game. It's sort of like Baldur's Gate and whatever, but it's in 3D. You ride dragons, you fight dragons, it's so much fun. You basically fight monsters. It's you wear armor, you find better weapons, you buy better weapons and stuff like that. So it's fantastic. I think you buy better weapons. I don't remember. The only problem with this thing is that it has a bug in it. It has something in it where you lose your dragon, and without your dragon, you can't fly from place to place. And I don't know, maybe there's a way through that, but I did read online that like once you lose your dragon, you can't progress it in the game. So you do sometimes somewhere in the game lose your dragon and can't progress any further. But until that point, it's still a fun game and it's still worth playing, is my opinion. So yeah, thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know what your favorite fantasy video games are, if you're into those. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and also like click on notifications so you know when I'm making a video. And yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments, and I'll see you guys in another video. Take care. Later.